Welcome to In the Studio, the show where you'll get to know a little more about the people you see and interact with every day on the campus of Hanover College. I'm your host, Lori Hedges. Our very first guest today is Dr. Bill Bettler, Professor of Communication. Dr. Bettler's expertise is in the rhetorical criticism and theory in popular media. He earned his Bachelor of Arts from Oberlin College and his MA and PhD from Purdue University. Welcome, Dr. Bettler.
Thank you.
So, your focus in communication includes music. However, you don't just study about music, you also are a musician. So, what all do you play?
Well, I mostly these days play the guitar, but I can play the piano and occasionally I can play the saxophone, or at least I used to be able to. It's been a while on that one though.
Okay. So, how did you get started as a musician?
Well, my parents are both really into music. My father is a classical guitarist mostly. My mother played the pipe organ at church. So between those two influences, it was something that was around me all the time. And then I think really from the popular media, whether it was popular music or music that was on television or in movies, I think it really sort of trickled down to me as an audience member and became part of my life.
Well, speaking of television and movies and things like that, who is your biggest influence in music?
Probably, it's a band, I would say, called The Band. They were Bob Dylan's backing band in the late 1960s. And nowadays, I think we would call it roots music or Americana music, but they were people who were really into getting to the essence of music. So they had influences from folk and country and rhythm and blues, and kind of synthesized all those styles, and that was very appealing to me, that idea of taking different influences but yet somehow trying to tell the American story.
Okay. I understand that you have a band that plays locally. Can you tell us a little bit about your band?
I do. I've actually had a couple of ensembles. So here on campus, another professor, Craig Phillip, and I have sort of an ongoing musical organization where we're the heart of the band, but then we, as students graduate, I don't know why they keep insisting on graduating, but as students graduate and leave us, then we get new members. So I've got that, and it's sort of a standard 4-person rock group, 2 guitarists, bass, and drums type of thing, or sometimes guitarist, bass, vocalist, and drums. So kind of the standard rock band. And then I more recently have this other ensemble that's more of an Americana acoustic duo. So that's been increasingly, I've been doing more with that, and that's been developing and taking off.
Who else in that besides you?
That one is me, but more importantly, the other member is a fellow named Robert Reynolds.
Okay, so speaking of Mr. Reynolds, he was the person that you collaborated with this fall, right?
That's correct.
And tell us a little bit about this exciting event.
Well, really, it's all about Mr. Reynolds, because Mr. Reynolds has been in the popular music world or the professional music world for over 30 years now, and he's not really even that old. So it's been really a life in music for him. For many, many years, he was the bassist in a band called the Mavericks. But he always had side projects. He had other groups and other albums, and he worked on other people's albums and so forth. So he's just an intensely creative person. And because of that, and because of his work ethic and his excellence, he has a pretty strong reputation even now in Nashville. So a group, actually a producer, was putting together an album. It's kind of in this vein that has become popular in the last 20 years or so, where they will do a tribute to a particular artist, and it'll be sort of an all-star tribute where several different artists are asked to do a song by the person who's being honored in the tribute. So I can't right now say who this particular project is a tribute to, because it hasn't been released yet. Okay. But Robert Reynolds was asked to contribute, because of his reputation and his excellence, he was asked to contribute to this tribute album. And he sort of negotiated that I could go along in the bargain. So I got to go to Nashville and record a song.
So what is that like? Walk us through a day of recording.
Well, it's pretty intense, first of all. I mean, this is a business. So the glamour was present at some points, but in many ways it was very hard work. So we got up, Nashville's about 3.5 hours away. So we got up pretty early in the morning because we had to be there for a 9:30 call. And I think we had a time change that was working, let's see, I guess it was working in our favor in this case. So we got a little bit of extra time for that. But anyway, we arrived around 9:30. We can go into a long story here, but it's just sort of it's very much a building blocks process where you take musical tracks, you take some sort of a bass track or set of tracks, and then you build upon that.
So do you like all play the song together and then each of you play your parts separately, or how?
Kind of all of the above, but in our case we took the drums, acoustic rhythm guitar that was played by Mr. Reynolds, and the two electric guitar parts that were played by studio musicians, and then I sang harmony vocals, and that was sort of the bass track that we recorded, as they say, live, so all those tracks at the same time. And then once we had that bass track, then we could start adding layers, sort of one at a time.
So what did you add?
Well, I think, let's see, the original thing that got added was some keyboard,
Okay.
some organ, some Hammond B3 organ. And then one of the most exciting things was that we were able to get another pretty well-known musician. He plays the pedal steel. His name is Al Perkins. He's a session musician, but this is a guy who has played with the Rolling Stones, Dan Fogelberg, Stephen Stills. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Graham Parsons was probably the person he was best known for playing with. So he arrived and he added a pedal steel part, and it was probably some of the greatest musical moments of my life to sort of literally be sort of a fly on the wall in the studio. I was sort of perched somewhere where I wasn't bothering him, but to watch him layer on his steel guitar part and to watch him sort of familiarize himself with the tune and use trial and error and so forth to build this incredible part. And eventually when this comes out and people can hear it and you can hear his contribution, I think it's one of the most distinctive parts of the recording, so that was pretty exciting. But then Mr. Reynolds added bass later, which I think is very difficult to add bass after the sort of bass track is already, when I say bass I mean not B-A-S-S, but the basic track is already recorded. He went in on top of that and added the bass, which you have to be a real pro to do that, so he did it really skillfully. And then at the very end of the day I got to go in and add a couple of acoustic guitar parts.
Nice.
That you don't really hear in the final mix too well, but I know they're there, and I think they provide some texture. So
were you familiar with this, whatever this song is that's a secret, before you were asked to do this?
Not the specific song. The way these things work when you're doing one of these tributes, the producer sort of assigns people certain songs. So this particular song I didn't know. The group that's being honored in the tribute is a group that's one of my favorite bands. So that I knew the group really well. I knew the style and the group very well. So we got notified probably about 6 weeks in advance of the session. So we had about that long to prepare the song. So when we got there, I mean, we had it down. You know, we'd been rehearsing the song for several weeks.
Nice. I think you've kind of already answered this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case there's a more exciting moment. But
Sure.
What was the most exciting moment during the day?
Well, you know, for me, the most special moment was Al Perkins and watching that. Probably the most exciting was when we recorded that basic track, because that was live, and that was, you know, live music is always the most exciting thing. But the caliber of these musicians, you know, I wish it was already released so I could say exactly who they are, because I think they're people that people in the audience would know, maybe not the names of these musicians, but the people they've played with.
Right.
But to have these really high caliber Nashville session musicians, you know, especially the drummer and these guitarists, and Robert Reynolds himself, I mean, his rhythm acoustic guitar part is just sensational. So to have that sort of basis and then to be able to sing on top of that, I mean, that was a thrill. It really was a thrill.
I understand that you might have another exciting thing coming up in April.
Yes, this is something that's sort of coming together even as we speak. Again, this is not, I don't want anyone to get the idea that somehow I made any of this stuff happen. This is all Robert Reynolds. But based on some social media things that he posted, actually going back to a year ago, December, when we played at a place here in Madison, he started getting responses really from around the world of people saying, you know, when do we get to see you, and when are you coming to X? So one of the people who commented back then was a woman who's a booking agent in the Netherlands. And she said, when are you coming to the Netherlands? So I saw that and I said, hey, you know, Robert, when are we going to the Netherlands? So he said, well, let's look into it. So he responded to her and she said, yeah, I mean, I wasn't just saying that. I would really like to book you guys. So it's looking like we might have about a week and a half sort of mini tour in the Netherlands. Here, I want to caution people who might hear that phrase and think that we're going to be staying at the finest hotels and bringing down, you know, multi-$1,000 fees. This isn't going to be exactly like that. The Netherlands has a state-supported arts industry, and we're probably, a lot of our so-called gigs are going to be things that are supported by the government. So probably we won't make a ton of money on this venture, but it will be an opportunity to bring American music and Americana culture to the Netherlands. And I guess the audiences in Europe tend to be very good, and they're really interested in, you know, they listen closely and they're very responsive. So I'm really looking forward to that.
What an opportunity. Even if you're not getting paid a lot, that's a really exciting opportunity for you.
Absolutely. You know, I love to travel, but I mean, mostly when you get to play with a musician like Robert Reynolds, it's just, you know, you become a better musician just by being around him and, you know, soaking it all in.
Well, I can't wait to find out more about this album when it comes out and to hear all about, we'll have to have you come back.
Sounds good.
After the tour and when you can tell us more about this album and who all's on it. So we want to thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking me.
After our commercial, we're going to have Blake Braden, Hanover College varsity swim coach, will be here to tell us all about the team's inaugural season. So we'll be right back. Thanks again.
Hanover offered a lot of things to me that other universities weren't able to offer me. I really appreciate the strong study abroad program that we have here.
I picked Hanover because Hanover screamed family to me, and I have constantly spent my entire life looking for the family I get to choose, and I chose Hanover.
I love the relationships I've created here with the surrounding community, with the professors, with peers, with faculty and staff.
Hanover's natural beauty, I really enjoy being outside and learning, and all my biology and geology classes actually allow for that hands-on learning.
I get to know my professors really, really well, and all of the classes are like really discussion-based, so it was just really cool to be able to be on here and like have the community feel.
About the building you're talking about.
There's really always something different going on. No matter what your interest is, or no matter what you're into, you can really find something that you're going to enjoy. There's never a dull moment.
It's very easy to make connections, to make things happen. And so because of that close-knit community, I really feel like there's a lot of things that I've been able to do on this campus.
It wasn't hard picking Hanover. It's like that special flower in a bouquet, and you just know it's the right one once you pick it.
Welcome back to In the Studio. I'm your host for the second half, Talina Mormon. Our second guest today is Hanover College head swim coach Blake Braden. Welcome, Blake Braden.
It's great to be here.
So, Coach, this is your second year at Hanover, but you're just coming to the end of your first season. How was that?
That's correct. It's been a journey. There have been some ups and downs, but I think overall, I think the team has grown closer together. I think it's become very an organic friendship overall with the entire team. So I think we've done very well.
Nice.
Yep.
So over the past season, how do you think the team has done so far?
I think we have definitely gone above and beyond our expectations for where we started the season, which I think is incredible. We started the season with 28 swimmers total, which I'm very pleased about, which is incredible for a first season. And then hitting our mid-season swim times, we had 108 swims, and out of those 108, we had 100 lifetime bests.
Wow.
So I think we have accomplished quite a bit this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Were there any unforeseen problems that you had this past season?
There are always unforeseen problems, especially in a first year.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is always just having 28 new swimmers come in from different ranges of abilities to, different towns, different cities. They've never met each other, so having those issues and trying to make sure that they form friendships and form bonds, I think that's the biggest aspect. That's always the toughest part, especially about having a first-year program.
Yeah. So who has been your biggest surprise swimmer, that's went above and beyond this past?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had quite a few. I'm not going to call an individual out, but we have had like I said, all 20 of our swimmers have done incredible job and incredible work throughout the season, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
So what's next for the swim team?
So I think the biggest thing is, our next meet is coming up in February 14th, 15th, and 16th, which is conference. So we've only got a week left.
Wow.
I know the swimmers are very excited to be finally done. It's a very long season.
Definitely.
And then after that, I think our goal is to continue to rise up in the Heartland Conference and try to, finish. Our goal of this year is third. So if we can finish third and then continue to move up second and eventually win it.
Yeah. Is there anything else about the swim team that you'd like to tell us about today?
I think the biggest thing is, the camaraderie that we present. We have a lot of our athletes not only, swim, but they are in a bunch of different clubs as well. I think that's the cool thing about the swim program is, the flexibility to be able to do, more than just eat, sleep, swim, athletics. You're going to have the opportunity to join some clubs, and we have a couple members that do clubs like EPZ, that show, and then we have a couple others that do, they're, I can't think of what the word is. I know they're vice president and president within their the freshman class, so
nice.
I think it's really cool.
So are there any opportunities for some other students who are interested in the swim team to
Yeah,
join?
Absolutely. I think that's the cool thing about swimming is you don't necessarily have to be really competitive at the beginning to join. I think it's an opportunity being in our first few years that, we'll have swimmers that are just beginning to swimmers who have the potential to be national level swimmers. Then anyone who has the ability and wants to do it and wants to put in the work, which is 6 months of very intense work, then we're all for having you guys join.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming out today.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks. And thank you for joining us today on our very first edition of In the Studio. We hope you'll join us again. I'm Talina Mormon, and we'll see you next time.